Morning, everybody. Good morning. So sorry we're a little bit late starting. We, of course, had some tech issues because it's the joy of the online world, isn't it? Everything always works perfectly until you hit the live button and then everything crashes. So sorry we're a little bit late starting. Thank you so much for bearing with us and welcome to today's Digital Boost Masterclass. We are so excited. We have lovely Henry joining us again, here to talk all things LinkedIn and how to grow your business on LinkedIn. I am personally fascinated by LinkedIn. It's such a cool platform. It's really, really growing and there's so many possibilities with it. So I know that you are going to learn so much in this session. Before we get going, I will tell you a little bit about myself and Digital Boost so you know who is looking after you and what to expect and how to get the most from today's session. And then we will dive in. So my name is Alice. I work for Digital Boost. I run all of our events here. If you ever need anything, please feel free to either drop me a DM in the Zoom chat, or you can send me an email after the session and we can have a chat about how we can support you. I will pop the email address in the chat box in just a little while. Now, Digital Boost, everything we do is totally free. So if you take anything from today's session, just know that everything we do is free. You will never be charged. We offer free support to small businesses and charities. We do this through one-to-one mentoring, masterclasses like the one you are on today. We do accelerator programs with the BT team. We've just launched a program with the Buy Women Built community called Begin. And we are also beginning to do in-person events. We are hosting one on International Women's Day, which we are very, very excited for. And I will pop all of the details about all of those things in the chats for you if you want to check them out. As always, with everything we do at Digital Boost, as I say, it is free and it is completely pressure-free. So if you do want to check us out or check out any of the things I've mentioned, I will pop them in the chat. But of course, no pressure at all. Please do just enjoy the session. Speaking of the session, we love to chat to you and thank you to, there was a chat message, but it disappeared, but whoever did say hi in the chat, thank you for saying hi. It's Charlotte. Hi, Charlotte, joining from South Africa. Amazing. Welcome, Charlotte. Do come say hi in the chat. We want to get to know you. Hi, Kerry. We want this to be an interactive session, so please say hi. Any questions you've got, pop them in the Q&A box for them. I suspect the chat box is going to be busy today. So do pop your questions in the Q&A box. And hello, good morning to everybody joining. Lots and lots of you here today. So thank you for being with us. And finally, we are recording. We are going to go through a lot of content today. I will make sure that you have the replay in your inboxes later this afternoon. But other than that, Henry, I will pass over to you so you can crack on with your presentation and then I will help you with the Q&A afterwards.
Thank you, Alice. And yeah, good morning to you all. Thank you for taking the time to join today. I've literally just popped a message in the chat just to sort of remind you all, if you've got any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat and we'll come to as many as we can at the end of the session between myself and Alice. So yeah, as Alice said, I'm Henry Wadsworth and I work for BT as a full-time job in social media. I've been working in social media for nearly 5 years now. From recruitment marketing to now the sort of business to business side of BT. And then alongside that, I have a few of my own clients in social media. I work for a global events company based out of the Shard in London and also manage their social media for them. So yeah, I have a huge passion for social media, really enjoy it. It's not just something I sort of class as a job, it's something I really enjoy doing on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, looking forward to the session today. I did one last summer for LinkedIn and then I did one a few weeks ago on Instagram as well. And both of those recordings are on the Digital Boost website. So yeah, feel free to check those out. We can obviously email the links around to them after as well on top of today's session. So yeah, looking forward to getting started. And yeah, like we said, just a quick reminder, any questions, pop them in the chat and we'll come to as many as we can at the end. So let me just start sharing my screen. Bear with me 2 seconds. If you wouldn't mind just confirming for me, Alice, that you can see this.
Yep, looks good.
You can, perfect, thank you. Okay, cool. So let's get started. So start off with the agenda, just so you all sort of know what to expect today. So we'll start off with the most basic, what is LinkedIn? Explain to you a bit about what that is, how many users there are today, and what people typically tend to use it for. And then we'll move on to what a good profile sort of tends to look like, followed by what good posts look like. Content ideas, we'll come on to that afterwards as well. One of the reasons why some people struggle to post on LinkedIn, just because they don't know what to talk about. Then we'll move on to tips for growing your LinkedIn network. And then lastly, we will come on to the questions. So it usually takes sort of 20 to 25 minutes to go through all of the slides. And then we can save the questions until the very end. So what even is LinkedIn? So LinkedIn is a premier business network with 940 million members from 200 countries and regions worldwide as of January this year. It's there to strengthen your professional network. So whether you use it for your sort of corporate job, whether you use it for small business, whether you're just starting out, you may be an entrepreneur. It's there to sort of strengthen your professional network. Although people are starting to use LinkedIn for a sort of personal branding side of things now as well, similar to what Instagram is. A lot of people I know tend to use both platforms for a similar sort of thing. And it's also, in case you didn't know, the oldest social media platform as well. I didn't know this until I did this first session last year when I looked into the background of LinkedIn. But yeah, it was the first ever sort of primary social media platform that still exists today that people do still use on a day-to-day basis. A few more stats for you as well. So 61 million users look through jobs through LinkedIn on a weekly basis. Quite remarkable, that figure. That's 61 million users around the world. It's a great place for you to stay in touch with old colleagues, get referrals for new business, or look for any sort of new job. It's great as well that it does actually suggest jobs to you based on your sort of experience, recommendations, and so on that you can gain through LinkedIn. It did launch back in 2003, which makes it 20 years, or over 20 years old now, actually. And most of the older platforms are starting to sort of see a steady decline in popularity, or are no longer around. However, of the top sort of social media platforms that do still exist today, such as LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, it has been around the longest, like I said. And then last but not least, an interesting fact for you, Bill Gates is the highest followed person on the platform with 35.9 million users, followed by Richard Branson with 19.7 million. And in case you didn't know, LinkedIn is actually owned by Microsoft, so that doesn't surprise me that Bill Gates is the most followed person. So moving on to what a good profile looks like. I've used my colleague Dan that I work with here at BT as an example here because I think his profile is great. He's one of the most successful LinkedIn users I know from both a personal sort of branding perspective and a BT perspective, because he does so much work around social media outside of his day-to-day role at BT. So if we start with the basics, adding a professional looking profile photo is one of the biggest things you can do to enhance your LinkedIn account. One of the reasons for that is because it can actually boost your profile up in the search feed on LinkedIn. So accounts that have profile photos will be prioritized through the LinkedIn algorithm versus profiles that don't have photos. So that small change really can make a big difference. As you can see, Dan's got a very professional, clear looking photo here. Appreciate that can be a lot easier said than done at times. So if you don't have access to a professional camera or a clear background or a light box or anything like that, just take a selfie or prop your phone up somewhere in your house against a plain background. Try and avoid sort of crops of selfies on a night out, which I've seen many people do before, because obviously LinkedIn is typically a work sort of professional platform. So it's different to what you would sort of use for Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, and so on. And then moving on to the headline, so make that stand out. The headline is the part just underneath Dan's name here that you can see. So you've got Dan's name in the big letters, and then the headline is the area underneath that. So most people sort of typically tend to have like their job title here, which is sort of what it states on your contract. But you can actually include as much information in here as you like. So as you can see, Dan has got his job role at BT in the first section there, followed by all of the other things that he does on a day-to-day basis. So he's the founder of Gradvance, which is his own company, and then he does all of the other things as well. So that's an area that you can really sort of use to sell yourself when people sort of first come onto your profile. It's a public area as well, so anyone can actually see that, whether they're connected with you or not. And I think try and keep it short, snappy. Try not to put too much information in there, because you've also got the About Us section on LinkedIn as well, where you can really sort of go into your experience, your background, why people should sort of connect with you and so on, what you can do for them. So that's another sort of area to be mindful of. Writing a summary as well. So that sort of feeds into the About Us section, which isn't included in the screenshot here. But that's the sort of bigger bio area where you can really sort of go into the smaller details there and sell yourself to people if you are sort of looking to promote your business or the products or the services that you sell. Adding relevant skills as well is another sort of big area. There's a new sort of creator section of LinkedIn now where you can include what you typically talk about. So as you can see under the top voice section on the left, you can add hashtags that you typically talk about or what your content includes, which makes it a lot easier for people to find both your profile and your content, because these are the sort of 4 areas that Dan typically speaks about on a day-to-day basis. So that will boost his profile and his content to a much bigger audience, whether he's connected with those people or not. And then lastly, requesting recommendations is another really good one that not many people know about. So it's sort of requesting a review or testimonial in a way, but LinkedIn like to call them recommendations. They sort of appear further down on your profile. So you can either request those from people or people can just leave them for you. You may have worked with someone on a particular sort of product or a service, or you may have customers where it is the sort of service that you can ask people to leave you reviews. So that's another great area that you can really use to sell yourself and also use as a sort of customer review area for people to see what you've done in the past, how you've helped people, and so on. Just a few more sort of bits to add as well. Adding all relevant work experience and education to show people where you've worked, what you studied, and what experience you have, and so on, is another great thing, because people do like to see that, especially if they are sort of wanting to invest their time and money into you as a sort of professional or business. They want to see that information when they go onto your profile. So include as much of it as you can. I know some people in the past that have been a bit hesitant about that because they don't want to sort of include all of their work experience, or they may have been a bit embarrassed about a job that they've done or a company they've worked for. But unless it's something that you're really not comfortable sharing, there's no harm, I don't think, in including all of your experience to show that you've had a sort of successful career so far, where you've worked and so on. And then your skills as well, like I said, to showcase your abilities to other members, colleagues, and customers to help understand your strengths. So once your skills have been added to your profile, you can also ask your connections to endorse them for you, which is another big feature on LinkedIn. I've had a lot of people do that for myself in the past without me asking for them, especially through the number of sort of digital boost sessions that I run with people and the one-to-ones that I have. It's a really nice feature because it shows that people sort of believe in you in the area that you work in, whether it's sort of social media or marketing or personal branding, digital marketing. As you can see here, Dan sort of speaks about LinkedIn and job search. He could have helped someone get them a job, so someone could have then endorsed him for that and left him a recommendation. So there's so many little things that you can include to really make your profile the best it can be. So moving on now to what a good post looks like. Again, I've used Dan just because I have so much respect for Dan, because his content is absolutely phenomenal, and his posts are always really great. So I definitely suggest checking his profile out if you ever need any sort of inspirational guidance on content, because his posts always do very well. Appreciate he's got a very high following, but there's a reason for that, because he's worked so hard on building up his personal branding and his sort of account on LinkedIn. So be personal. Posts always work best when they're personal. Adding authenticity to each of your posts in your own tone of voice, and let your profile do the selling. Try not make them too robotic. I know a lot of people nowadays are using sort of Chat GPT and AI to sort of write social media posts for their jobs. I'm not going to lie, I've done it myself, but you do have to be careful, because they can sometimes come across a bit too sort of fake and scripted and robotic. So whether you do use ChatGPT or AI for your role or social media or writing blogs, articles, and so on, always sort of give them your own touch after. Just give it a sort of skim read and go back through and make sure that it doesn't sound a bit too fake, because people will easily be able to pick up on that. Be relevant as well. So when you are thinking of sort of timely content, you don't necessarily need to watch the news. Think about what is affecting you and your network, and write about that. Building your audience and then writing good LinkedIn posts on top of this that generate leads takes authentic content that sort of people can relate to. You should know and narrow down your audience to be as specific as possible, and then write to them. So don't sort of write posts that are too generic or that aren't relevant for your audience. Your audience are your most sort of important factor when it comes to creating social media content. You should know who your audience are. You should be able to understand them and what they typically like, especially if you are someone that posts on LinkedIn quite active or quite regularly. You should be able to pick up over time which of your posts do well and which ones maybe not perform as well. So that should be something that's fairly easy to sort of pick up on. Moving on to self-promotion. So it can come across a bit like ads sometimes, and people don't always want to engage organically with ads. I do love a bit of self-promotion, I'm not going to lie, but I know some people that do it all the time. I'll go on LinkedIn and it will be the same person's post that's popped up at the top of the news feed. It's trying to sort of sell themselves. It's great. I'm all for sort of shouting about yourself and your achievements and so on, but don't get in the habit of doing it too often. The LinkedIn feed is powerful because it allows business people to share the insights and thoughts to the relevance that are relevant to their network. So instead of leading people down the path of showing off how great you are, use that as a sort of hook to inspire and encourage others to maybe post more or speak about themselves in a sort of helpful and engaging way. Only to then surprise them with your own point of view. So there's quite a clever way that you can sort of be promotional without it coming across a bit too sort of spammy and sort of in your face. And then mixing content up. So sometimes short posts that ask a relevant, short, snappy question can lead to really good engagement. Quite surprising at times because I feel like people need to sort of write, or they feel like, sorry, they need to write paragraphs on paragraphs for a LinkedIn post. That's not always the way to achieve sort of good engagement. Not everyone likes to read posts that are like that. So if you've built up an engaged following using more personal posts, like the other examples of good LinkedIn posts in this article, you can benefit from injecting a little variety into the length and style of your posts. And these can be sort of shared in a number of different ways, such as photos, blogs, PDF carousel posts, which are a really effective way of sort of sharing new content on LinkedIn. The role that I do at BT, we try and share as many sort of carousel PDF posts as we can now because they actually achieve our highest engagement over photos, text-only posts, blogs, and videos. So they've always performed really well for us since we started using them a couple of years ago now, and we're still using them today just because, like I say, they get the highest amount of engagement. So there's all different ways you can mix your content up. Try and add a sort of variety to it. Don't get too in the habit of always writing text-only posts or always posting photos. Do a sort of calendar if you need to help space it out and plan ahead. Whether you do sort of one photo, one video 1 week, and then you can do a blog and a carousel post the next week. Try and mix it up as much as you can because that is what will get you the good engagement and really get your content out there to people that you may not necessarily be connected with. Educating people. So you may not be the next Steve Jobs, but you can certainly become very well known within your LinkedIn network as a person who thinks differently. And when that happens, people will start to see and trust you. And when they see you in your company in other contexts, it will make them sort of believe in you a lot more and come across in quite a genuine way. And then last but not least, showing your results. So you've worked hard and achieved great results by posting regularly, mixing up your content, using all of the sort of features that the LinkedIn post platform can allow you to do, and that deserves to be celebrated. Why keep that a secret? If you've achieved results that other potential clients might be interested in, it's absolutely worth sharing with your network. And more than just showing their results, talk about how you've achieved them as well to educate others. So you may have recently posted a type of content that's absolutely smashed it. You've got really good engagement. Explain that to people and explain to people why you think that post did well, because people want to learn from you and people want to know how they can do the same for their own profiles and their products, services, and so on, especially from a business perspective. And if you can remember sort of a specific talking points that the client had, that's an even bigger value add. There's immense value in showing how the conversation went. And then just a few sort of short bits to finish on here for what a typical good post could look like. So if we look at Dan's post here on the left, you can see in the first line, he's mentioned the marketing meetup, which is why it's gone blue. So he's mentioned that, which means it's clickable. And that will then notify the people that may follow the marketing meetup, but they may not follow Dan. It's a great way of sort of boosting the post's exposure and reaching it with more people. He's also mentioned Liz on the fourth line down as well. So a colleague that he worked with, he's included a few emojis in there as well. And then lastly, he's included hashtags. And with hashtags, you don't always have to sort of include them at the very end. You can build them into a post as well to make it sort of a bit easier to read and a bit more sort of interesting to look at and engaging. So don't feel like with hashtags, you always need to do a huge paragraph of them at the very end of the post, and because that doesn't always work and they can look a bit sort of too spammy in that way as well. And then the photo of Dan here was also included in the same post. So there's a great mixture here of hashtags, mentions, emojis, call to action, and then a nice clear photo of Dan as well. So moving on to content ideas, an area that I've spoken to a lot of people about in the past, clients, BT colleagues, friends, even family. And this is one of the reasons why people don't necessarily post on LinkedIn as much as they'd like to, because they don't always know what to talk about. So if we start with the top one, events, roadshows, exhibitions, and job fairs. When you're posting about this type of content, tell people what you've learned, who did you meet, what was the value going to this event, what did you get out of it, and what can you tell other people? depending on what your role is, what your company is, events are sort of a huge thing that most people do typically tend to post about on LinkedIn. So that's a great one to sort of get you started, quite an easy one to talk about as well, I think, if you are struggling with content and ideas to post about. And then anything you do outside of your day job, such as people networks. You may be part of a people network within your sort of role. You may do volunteering regularly. You may work for a charity. Showing the sort of human being behind a profile can really sort of boost your engagement and exposure when it comes to content as well. And because it shows that there is a person behind this profile, it's not a robot sort of asking you to post your content on a day-to-day basis. And then depending on what your role is and what your company is, product and service releases and announcements is another big one. You could sort of really hype your audience up for a particular product that you're about to launch. You could do a countdown and then do a bigger sort of announcement when the product comes out. Charity events and fundraisers, sort of leading into that first point there that I spoke about, another really great one for you to post. And then articles and blogs. Writing articles, I've done a couple myself in the past. It's a really nice way to sort of speak to your audience, because some people do prefer to read that longer form of content that they can take away and read in their own time. You can also download this type of content as well as a PDF. So instead of reading it as a post on your phone or your laptop, you can actually download it and take it away to either sort of share with your team, read in your own time, read on the train. And with this, you could even turn it into sort of a custom reviews and case study style content as well. So as well as that recommendations feature that I spoke about at the start of this presentation, you could effectively turn testimonials, reviews, client statements, and so on into an article to then share across your network. Career stories, journeys, learnings, and training is another really good one that you can speak about. Depending on sort of what your background is, how your career has grown to date, where you've got to where you are today, is another really nice one. And then lastly, you can share personal news on LinkedIn too. It's not just for work. I think this is becoming a lot bigger these days as well. I feel like back in the day when I first started my job in the corporate industry, people only used to think LinkedIn was just for work. And I think nowadays people are starting to realize that personal branding is such a huge thing on LinkedIn. And it shows that there is a person behind a profile. That's why I try and mix my content up on my profile as much as I can. So as much as it's good for me to talk about BT, I like to show that I do have a life outside of my job as well. And that I do sort of get up to things that I like to speak to my professional network about, and not just share on the sort of more social platforms such as Facebook and Instagram. And people buy from people. I'm not just saying that you need to be completely sort of right off your business page, but your audience is far more likely to engage with a personal post as opposed to a formal one that comes across like an advert from your business, and your connections will prefer to strike up a conversation with a person that they feel they know rather than a robot behind the screen. Growing your network. So another sort of hot topic that people see, want to know more about, whether your sort of audience has been a bit static and not grown too much over time. There's so many things that you can do to typically grow your network on a day-to-day basis. They're all quite simple things as well. No one's going to know your page exists unless you tell them. So instead of just firing off that connection request, personalize it and add your own touch to let the person know why you're wanting to connect with them, and how you may know each other and what they also may get out of connecting with you. So you can do that on LinkedIn. Instead of just connecting with someone, you can add a personal note and then it will go straight into their direct messages. So you could have recently met someone at an event. You could have sort of you could know someone from a previous job. Include that message when you send the request off to remind them. If you are someone that goes to a lot of events, you may have connected with over 20 people on that day, and not everyone's going to remember all the people that they met. So add that personal touch, because that person is far more likely to want to connect with you when they see that personal message rather than it just being a straightforward connection request. I always try and do that now with people that I connect, so they know the reason why I'm wanting to sort of connect with them on LinkedIn. And now the world has gone sort of back to normal after COVID. I hate using that word, but obviously in-person events and opportunities are completely back to normal these days. And it gives you a great opportunity to sort of speak about that. So follow up on those in-person events that you may be attending, whether they're internal meetings, product launches, conferences, training workshops, events, jobs fairs. There's so many things that you can even speak about, social events too. Follow up on those. If you've met a particular person that you really want to sort of continue a conversation with, or work with later down the line, follow up on those, connect with them, and that's one way that your audience will easily grow. There are over 1 million LinkedIn groups, to date for all types of job roles and industries, and they're all very easily searchable. There's a couple of reasons as to why groups are important. Groups, just so you know, for anyone that's not too familiar with them, are sort of fairly similar to how Facebook groups work. But they allow you to send messages to a large number of people for free without using the in-mail feature that LinkedIn Sales Navigator sort of includes, which I'll speak more about on the next slide. They're very easy to set up, and you can send legitimate invites to connect to large audiences with a high acceptance rate. So LinkedIn groups are something I definitely suggest checking out. That is a hyperlink there on the screen. So when we send these slides around after, you'll be able to access that groups area and find out more about them and why I think you should use them. Employees, so they are key to your long-term growth of the page. If you are someone that has a lot of employees working for you, you may not, you may just be sort of a solo worker, but ask your employees to edit their job descriptions on their LinkedIn profiles so they all link back to one place, being in the company that you will work for. This allows their contacts, their connections, and so on to find and follow you if you are someone that has a business page as well as a separate personal account. But also it adds that user as an employee to your company as well. So it actually shows if you do have a business page that you have employees at the same time, which is a great way of growing your network because it shows that your company has employees. And that leads on to sort of saying that displaying the number of colleagues that you have can help your company establish credibility on the platform, which will essentially grow your network automatically over time without you having to put too much effort in. And then lastly, adding your LinkedIn icon and hyperlink to the rest of your social media icons, whether that's in a sort of email footer, email signature, and anywhere else that links out to your social media handles. It could be, like I say, your email signature, a link tree within your other social media bios or your website, business cards, leaflets, and so on. This is something that I've always done. I've always included my LinkedIn hyperlink within an email signature so that when I'm sending emails to colleagues or people outside of the business, they can see that I'm an active member of LinkedIn. And it's a great way to sort of encourage people to connect with you. You've also got the QR code feature as well. So if you are someone, like I said, that goes to events and you're wanting to connect with people on a sort of regular basis, you may be in a loud environment. You've got that LinkedIn QR code feature in the search bar in the top right. So you can either scan people's QR codes through that instead of having to type their name in. And people can also scan yours as well. So it's a really quick, simple, and easy way to connect with people. If you're someone that's regularly on the go or you're, like I say, in a loud environment and you can't sort of hear someone that's trying to spell their name out and so on. And that leads me on to the last slide now, which is a really quick point on LinkedIn Sales Navigator. This is a sort of paid for service of LinkedIn, which a lot of our sales teams at BT have. But if you are sort of someone that wants to use LinkedIn as a platform to sort of sell and gain new customers, it's a really great feature. So from sales perspective to closing new deals, you can do it all with Sales Navigator. The price can vary depending on the size of your business, how many people you need it for. But this is something that I'd really suggest checking out if you feel like you can benefit from this. It makes sales prospecting a lot easier. There's no need to cold call people because it comes across in a much more genuine and authentic way. You can create long-term value through Sales Navigator. And then a few sort of stats to finish on here. On average, modern sellers see 15% more sales pipeline created, 42% larger deal sizes closed, and 59% total revenue influenced by Sales Nav. And those stats were taken directly from the LinkedIn Sales Navigator Solutions website. You can also measure your LinkedIn social selling index score as well. That's something that we'll include the link in today's slides for after the session. But this is something that I encourage all of my colleagues to do at BT when I deliver these sessions internally. It's a really interesting sort of score that you can keep track of. There's an example there on the left. It measures it on those 4 different areas. And if it is something that you really want to work on improving, you can sort of track it month by month. If you are someone that really wants to improve your profile, you may sort of want to focus on posting sort of good quality content, then growing your audience. So it's a really interesting score that any of us have access to. And then if you want a more sort of detailed report and you want to use the LinkedIn Sales Navigator side of things, that's something you can do through a paid for service. And that leads us on to the questions. So I will stop sharing my screen now and have a look through the questions with Alice.
Thank you
I've not
so
been able
much.
to see the chat whilst I've been showing these slides, so I'll be interested to see what
Yeah,
in there.
really, really good questions. Let me jump back. And guys, as questions, come, pop them in the chat and we will get through as many as we can before 11 a.m. So Lydia's kicking us off with a really great question. So Lydia has said, is it better for business, i.e. charities, to have personal accounts or an organization account? That's the first part of the question. We can maybe do the second part in a minute.
Yeah, of course. I think it depends who you are and what your business is and what you're trying to use the platform for. Um, I know people, and I've spoken to people in the past through Digital Boost when I've had one-to-ones with people that have got both. And unless you sort of see the benefit of having both a personal account and a business page, um, I would probably suggest if you are a small business or an entrepreneur working for yourself, just do it all through the same account because you are technically creating more work for yourself. You may struggle over time to keep one up, so one will start to deteriorate and then it won't get good engagement if you're not posting as active on both platforms. So I think it depends on who you are, what your business is, and yeah, what the reasons are. But I'm more than happy to have a chat with whoever asked that question to sort of look into the sort of finer details of that
Yeah.
if you feel like that would help.
Yeah, definitely. I will pop your link in the chat and in the email afterwards, actually, maybe that's easier. And then as a kind of follow-up to that, because it's Lydia again, Lydia's also said, I guess if you do have a profile photo, if you choose to have it as the organization's logo, will that then be missed through the algorithm? I guess because it's not a personal photo and you're not connecting with people.
I don't know the sort of exact answer to that. I don't really think it'd make much of a difference, to be honest. I really doubt the LinkedIn algorithm would sort of prioritize personal photos of people on a business page over company logos and so on. But it depends, I think, yeah, what your business is. I know someone that does sort of family counseling and therapy, and because it's a sort of very personal service that she offers, her company logo is literally a selfie of herself, which I think is really nice because it adds that personal touch to it. And yeah, I think it depends who you are, what your business is, and what your sort of main goal is for using the platform.
Yeah, definitely. And like you say, definitely one to pick up in a one-to-one. So we will make sure that is shared. Catherine has given some tips there for Dan and his LinkedIn profile, which I love. And I've seen that a couple of times. So thank you so much to everyone kind of offering peer support and advice in the chat. That's super lovely. Nalini has asked, what is a carousel PDF post? And maybe we can talk about this a bit more because I only learned that on a webinar last year, actually. Maybe it was yours, Henry. It might have been yours. But do you want to maybe dive into what a carousel PDF post is and maybe how to use it and things like that?
Yeah, of course. So on LinkedIn, as well as uploading the sort of typical photo, video, and so on, you can now upload documents. So a carousel sort of post is typically a PDF document. So you can design that on Word or PowerPoint, save the document as a PDF, and then you can upload it, and it will literally allow you to swipe through the document a bit like an Instagram carousel post. It'll show you at the bottom how many pages there are in that document, but it's just quite an easy and nice way to show off your content in a different way. Plus, you can also blow it up to full screen and then download the document as well, which people can then take away and share with their teams or with whoever they like. So I definitely suggest checking out that type of content if it's not one you've done before. It's really easy to set up. And like I say, you can add any sort of document, but a PDF always works the best just because it allows you to flick through it in a really nice and easy way for the user.
Brilliant. Rebecca has asked about content ideas and specifically about newsletters. And I think this was related maybe to a slide you had about that. So I don't know if we can maybe dive into newsletters as content, I think, for LinkedIn. I think that's maybe what she's talking about.
Yeah, of course. So again, newsletters are another type of content that you can set up really easily. You can set them up as a sort of series, whether you do them on a sort of fortnightly or monthly or quarterly basis for your business. It depends how much you've got to talk about, I suppose. But that's something that I do within my role at BT. We send out newsletters to our different audience types every 3 months. And people can read them in their own time. It displays it like a normal post, a bit like an article in a way. A newsletter and an article are pretty much the same type of content because they're displayed in exactly the same way. But people can also subscribe to newsletters. So they'll get notified every time you send a new one out. They can also get it via email as well. So instead of it just coming up as a normal LinkedIn post that they see on their feed, you'll also be emailed it the same as any other newsletter. But again, happy to have a chat with whoever asked that question if you'd like to look into sort of newsletters and decide whether you think they're right for your business.
Yeah, that's really cool. I didn't know about that feature. So I love coming to these webinars because I get to learn as well. That's really cool. Rebecca also asked about the profile, how you can add hashtags to your profile. So I don't know if that's something we can show or if it's just as simple as typing them in when you're editing your profile.
So you just have to turn on the creator mode of your LinkedIn account. I can include the instructions on how to do that because I've already got it turned on for my account, so I can't easily sort of share my screen and show you now. But it's really simple to do. literally type into Google how to turn on LinkedIn creator mode, and it will show you how to do it. It took me less than 5 minutes to turn it on and add those 5 hashtags. I think 5 hashtags is the maximum, because it sort of defeats the object if you add too many, because you shouldn't be talking about that many different things. They like to sort of narrow it down so it then feeds your content into the right algorithm for the right people to see. But yeah, very easy to set up. And again, we can include the instructions on how to do that after the call. But yeah, so easy.
Brilliant, thank you. Pippa has said, and maybe we can just give like the highlights or the kind of high level steps, but Pippa's asked, what would you recommend that a small business owner begins with developing on LinkedIn?
I think growing your audience is probably the most important factor for a small business, because if you've not got an audience, then there's no point in posting or spending too much time focusing on content, because you need the audience first. You also need to understand your audience as well as to who they are, and you can download reports and look into that, such as the typical sort of demographics, industries, and so on, professions, job levels. Any of us can look into that on LinkedIn. So I think understanding your audience and building up your audience is the most important thing to start off with, and then work on everything else over time. And the other bits will naturally sort of feed into it anyway, such as creating content, growing your audience as well, connecting with others, and so on. But yeah, more than happy to have a one-to-one with the person that asked that question, and we can have a look through your page and see how it's sort of performed so far, depending on who you are and what your business is.
Yeah, that's amazing. Just flipping over to the Q&A box. So Martin has asked, well, has said, I am researching whether building and managing social media campaigns across multiple platforms can be time consuming and costly. Any tips or thoughts, please, Henry? Now, I know this isn't isolated to LinkedIn, but obviously you are the social media king. So what do you reckon, Henry?
So I think sort of scheduling tools and external platforms such as Sprout Social, which we spoke about on the session I ran a few weeks ago, Alice, for Instagram. You've got Hootsuite, you've got Canva, you've got um, Sprout Social, which is what we use at BT. And those scheduling tools, a lot of them are free, depending on what you want to use it for and what sort of level you like. But I think using a third party scheduling tool is really beneficial, because you can use it to plan ahead. You can also use it to schedule the same content across multiple platforms. So you're not having to post your content across each platform individually every day. You can tailor it through there as well for the particular audience, edit the copy slightly to go out at all the same time across all of your platforms, depending on what you're on. But I think that's probably one of the easiest things to start off with. If you are struggling with sort of time and creating content, if you feel like it's sort of taken over your day-to-day job a bit too much, definitely look into a scheduling tool, and a sort of planner, as Canva like to call it. So you can look at your content by like a weekly or monthly basis, depending on how much you deliver. Um, and it will just make your life so much easier. This is what I'm always telling people, especially if you sort of put too much sort of pressure on yourself. I need to post 3 times this week, but I don't know what I'm going to talk about. And then that's when the sort of last minute panic comes in, because you don't know what you want to talk about, what content you're going to post, how to write the copy. Whereas if you've got that forward plan, it allows you to plan a lot farther in advance. It doesn't need to say that the content needs to be completely finalized a month in advance, but you can just add notes into it, and then work on it by a sort of weekly basis to get yourself ready for the following month and so on.
Definitely, definitely. And we can recommend a couple of platforms and stuff in the emails and in one-to-one. So if you need help, we can definitely do that. Talisa and Chantel have asked kind of similar questions. I'm gonna merge those two together. But it's essentially around, if you're still employed and have a business outside of work in another industry, how do you kind of navigate having multiple lines of work? So maybe having a 9 to 5, but maybe also running a side hustle. How do you kind of navigate that on LinkedIn? And can it start to get awkward if you're pushing your personal business?
I think it depends on what the business is really, and how sort of confident you are to speak about them. I've got a part-time job which is completely irrelevant to what I do at BT on a day-to-day basis. It's not a secret. I'm completely open with both companies about what I do. And that's why I try and add a sort of like 50-50 balance between the two jobs. It's a lot easier for me to probably talk about the BT role on LinkedIn, versus the events job that I do on the side. But I think just it depends how much you have to talk about really, and try not to sort of cross the line too much, how your relationship is with your company and your manager and so on. But just be sort of completely fluid and open with the two of them. Um, Again, happy to have a separate one-to-one with the person that asked that question to sort of look into it, and have a more sort of personal chat on what you think.
Yeah,
But I don't think you should worry about it too much, because as long as both companies know that you've got that side hustle like they do with me, then it shouldn't be too much of an issue for you to even worry about.
yeah, definitely. Stephen has said, so bear with me, this is a chunky one. So at the tail end of 2023, Stephen started scheduling posts on the company page rather than posting organically. They noticed a huge decrease in engagement and impressions. So at the start of this year, they switched back to posting organically and engagement increased dramatically. When researching it, it said scheduled posts should not be penalized, but my A/B testing suggests otherwise. Do you have any advice?
I'm slightly confused by that question because when you say they were scheduled through the company page rather than posting organically, do you mean posting organically through your personal account? Or were there posts that you scheduled through the company page paid ads? Because you've obviously got two types of social media. You've got paid ads and then you've got organic content that will just go out to the people that follow the page.
I
Um,
think it might be a question about what you just touched on, using a scheduling tool versus posting in the moment. But maybe Stephen can give some more context, or we can do it in a one-to-one, but maybe we take it as using a scheduling tool versus posting in the moment. Does that impact engagement?
Yeah, I mean, as far as I'm aware, and I've worked for a few different companies now that have all used scheduling tools and they've all been completely different. I've never used the same scheduling tool for the companies I've worked for so far. It shouldn't make too much of a difference. I think don't get too much in the habit of scheduling posts to say go out at 8:30 every morning, Monday to Friday, because the algorithm will easily pick up on that, and then it probably will push your posts down lower in the feed. So you need it to start, come across genuine, and you need people to sort of see a post and sort of not think that you've got a robot setting these up to post them every day at 8:30 in the morning. So when we schedule posts through BT, for example, we'll schedule them at different times every day, whether it's 8:36 in the morning and then 10:23 the next day, because if they are sort of scheduled, like I say, at the same time every day, people will easily pick up on that and they'll think that the posts aren't genuine and that you've got AI running it or something. So hopefully that sort of answers the question slightly. But Stephen, I'm happy to have a chat with you if that would help, so we can look into that in a sort of better detail.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Thank you. And yes, Stephen did give the extra context, and it was what we thought, which is fantastic. Leslie says, would you suggest that the content you post on LinkedIn has a different style or feel to that you post on Instagram and Facebook?
I think so, yeah, because the audiences that you have on both are probably very different. Um, I mean, I don't post the same content on LinkedIn as I do on Facebook and Instagram because I've got a lot more sort of personal contacts, friends, family, old school friends, and so on Facebook. Whereas LinkedIn, I try and keep it just for work. I suppose it depends what your business is and what you typically talk about and who your audience are on each of the accounts. Obviously, LinkedIn is a professional platform and it's always going to be known for that, I think. So I would always tailor the content that I post on LinkedIn, whether that's just editing the copy or changing some of the photos versus the content that I'll post on Instagram. So I think it just depends, like I say, who you are, who your audience are, what the content is that you would typically post, and what the business is that you either work for or run yourself. But there's a number of different reasons for that that I could go on for quite a while. But yeah, I think just tailor it around your platform. Don't post exactly the same content on all platforms anyway, because people will easily be able to pick up on that, whether you just change one of the photos or you change the copy slightly so it sounds a bit more personal for Instagram, a bit more sort of casual, I'd say, versus the more sort of corporate looking posts that you'd typically post on LinkedIn.
Yeah, brilliant. Rachel has said, what is the best tool to use to create professional LinkedIn headers and posts? We have used Canva, but the quality does not translate well, we found. Do you have any other suggestions, Henry? I know we personally use Canva, but everybody's kind of got different preferences.
Yeah, I mean, that's the first time I've ever heard anyone say that about Canva because you can do so much on there. You can set up your own templates, and you can also pay for a version of Canva that's slightly better as well. I mean, it depends if you've got access or you pay for Adobe Photoshop or Premiere, and how confident you are on those. I also use that in my role to create some of our content, especially videos using Adobe Premiere. But there's so many apps out there now as well. If you're someone that creates sort of reels or video content, you've got the app called CapCut, which is great. You can also do so much through sort of LinkedIn and Instagram now. Anyway, I know this session isn't about Instagram today, but there's so many features available on all of these platforms that you can do in-house now because these platforms are typically wanting you to create as much content as you can on the platform instead of using third-party apps, because they just don't like it. Um, but yeah, I think Canva. I'm happy to have a chat with the person about this because I feel like if you use it in the right way, it is great. And it's the first time I've ever heard anyone say that about that app.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Definitely want to do in a one-to-one, like you say. Rachel has asked, are there any tips on how to generate a conversation with a new connection often people connect but don't interact further? That is such a good question. It's so hard to do, and it's so hard when you put yourself out there, isn't it? And then you're like, oh, I didn't get a response. So do you have any tips, Henry?
I think making it clear in the sort of offset why you want to connect with that person. So I definitely think it's worth including that one line sentence with the connection request when you sort of first fire off that connection. So the person knows, first of all, who you are and why you wanted to connect with them, and then carry that conversation on further. I'm always sort of someone to want to speak on the phone or via video call because I just think it's so much easier to speak that way. It's less sort of salesy in a way instead of firing back and forth emails or messages on LinkedIn. Um, but make it clear to the person why you wanted to connect with them. Don't come across too sort of spammy. Try and pick out something on their profile that you can resonate with, whether it's a sort of particular industry that you may have worked in. You could have even worked for the same company. You may have sort of the same sort of interests or experience that you've been able to see through their posts. So take the time to start off looking through their profile and their experience and their background, what they typically post about, so you can actually resonate with them when you talk to them. Copying and pasting the same message to everyone that you want to connect with, whether it's for a sales perspective, sorry, or so on, is never going to work. So I think the more personal you can make that message and that connection and why you want to speak to that person, the better, and the more likely they are to want to respond and continue that conversation.
Absolutely. Barbara's got a really interesting question. It's something I've often thought. So Barbara said, if you meet new people at an event and then you write a post, can you name those people without their consent? Where does the kind of line get drawn in terms of meeting people and then posting and tagging that they were there and things like that?
It depends on. I think it's you have to just take each one as it comes, don't you? And what the event is or what the reason is for you to posting about it. I mean, I've been to all sorts of events in the past where people have tagged me to say it was great to meet Henry Wadsworth and Alice Logan and so on at this event today. After speaking on sort of Teams for however long, I think you just have to judge each one on a sort of case by case basis, really, and what the event is. Whether that person's very active on LinkedIn, so I'm sure if you were to connect with them and you can see they've not posted in months, I mean, to me, I'd sort of think, okay, it's not really worth tagging this person because they're clearly not very active on social media anyway. So I think, yeah, just taking it on a case by case basis and what you think the benefits are for that. If you think it's worth telling your audience that you've met that person or connected with them or finally met them in real life, um, yeah, just judge each one by what the reason is really and what you want
Yeah,
to get out of it.
yeah, definitely. You can only experiment, can't you? You can't always get it right.
Exactly.
Jumping around a little bit because I know we're a little bit tight on time now, but Steve has asked, what's the ideal frequency for posts in your view to get impact and build a following? I feel like we answer this every time, don't we, Henry?
I know we do, yeah. And there's not really any right or wrong answer for it because it depends what your business is, how well your content performs, if you can get away with posting regularly. I mean, with the content we post at BT, we probably post 3 or 4 times a week, but that's because we have got quite a big audience on LinkedIn and we can get away with posting that much because we've always got something to talk about, whether it's a new product or a service, a new campaign that's just launched. It could be sort of a thought leadership piece from a sort of professional one, AI or the Internet of Things or so on. So for a company as big as BT, that's a typical corporate organization, it's easy for us to get away with it. But it depends. Don't be too harsh on yourself. You may have sort of busier and quieter times where you can post about a lot more versus other weeks where you may not post as much. But I wouldn't sort of say to yourself, you need to post every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, every week to split the post up because the algorithm will easily pick up on that. And that's when your post will typically start to decline with the engagement because it'll become a bit too sort of routinely. And that's what the algorithm doesn't like. But there's not really any right or wrong answer. It depends who you are, what your business is, and how much you have to talk about. Like I say, you may have a month where you've got loads going on. You're going to all sorts of events. You've launched a new product, and then the next month may be a bit quieter. So
Definitely. I had just popped the note I put at the start of the webinar. I popped it again there for you. So that's got our events, our mentoring, and our email address if you need more information. Those are just general links. I will email out Henry's mentoring link and his previous masterclasses and bits and bobs that we've done with Henry. So you can have it all in one place, but you've got the general links there just to get you going. Holly has asked a really great question. Holly says, do you have any tips for growing confidence in sharing your voice on a public platform? This is something so many people struggle with. So, and I mean, I don't know if any of you guys have seen Henry's Instagram or LinkedIn, but it's really, really good. So do you have any kind of tips, Henry, on how you've kind of got confidence sharing your voice and maybe how other people can too.
I think obviously it's so easy for me to say this to a group of people that I don't know on a personal basis, but I think just obviously stepping outside of your comfort zone is something that not many people are sort of comfortable doing or happy to do. But I mean, back in the day when I first got social media, I would have never wanted any sort of video of me to go on social media, whether I was talking or not, because I just didn't like myself on video. Then over the years, I've realized that you have to post videos. And then I've started talking on camera now as well, which I never used to do. I mean, I used to deliver these sessions for BT like 3 or 4 years ago, and I would never have my camera on or anything like that because I was just too shy of a person. So I think was it Holly that asked that question? I'm happy to sort of have a chat with you if you'd like through a one-to-one to have a chat about that. But it depends what your business is and what you want to talk about and what you want to get out of it more than anything. Um, but yeah, it's so easy to sort of fall in the same sort of habit and routine of posting the same content to the same audience all the time, which is why you sort of need to mix it up and do a mixture of that photo only content or video only content, writing blogs and articles and so on. But it is a minefield sometimes. So appreciate that it's not a one size fits all solution.
Definitely. And actually, we've got a couple of sessions coming up that might help with this. So we are doing, there's the event on International Women's Day on the 8th of March, which is in person. We have a session on personal branding, which is going to cover a little bit about confidence and how you put yourself out there. So if you can't join that event in person, we will be sharing the replays. So definitely worth joining the community so we can send them to you. And then we also have a session happening on the 14th of March with Lisa, who's another volunteer in our community, and it's called Success and Self-Promotion. And it's a really lovely, nurturing environment where you can come along and practice talking about your successes, and it really helps with your confidence. So I would definitely check that out on the platform as well. I think we can possibly, this might be the last question we take because it's a chunky one, but Kerry is here.
Oh, I was just about to pick up on that question as well about the audience on Facebook and
Yes, exactly. Yes, you've seen it. So yeah, so kind of Kerry's got an amazing audience on Facebook, like lots and lots of fans. Her business is fantastic and she's had lots of help from BT as well. And she is actually one of the panelists at our International Women's Day event, which is amazing. But Kerry is struggling to get the same level of interaction on LinkedIn that she has got on Facebook, and is wondering if it should be a slightly different approach of B2B versus B2C.
definitely, I think is the answer to that one. You shouldn't be posting the same content that reads exactly the same way on both platforms, especially if one platform is not doing as well as the other. There's clearly something not right there. Kerry, I'm happy to have a chat with you separately about that to sort of look at both pages and work out what your audience is and what they typically like on both platforms. It may be that you spend a bit of time one day just going back through your last few posts, whether it's over the last few weeks or months, and actually just making like a manual note of which post performed well on each platform and what the reasons for that could have been, which is what I have to do occasionally for BT posts for my role. But yeah, try and adapt the content and the sort of copy for each platform if they aren't performing as well. But feel free to set up a one-to-one and we can have a look through both pages on that and work out what the reasons for that might be.
Definitely. And perhaps we can just finish with Vija's question, which is, I have two different businesses in two different languages. Can I have two business pages? I like this question.
Yeah, I don't see why not. I don't know whether I guess the platform would change the language depending on what country you're in and what language you want the account set up in. Um, but yeah, I don't see any reason why you can't. What are your thoughts on that one, Alice?
I was trying to think if I've like seen it done before. I think
Yeah,
maybe.
I haven't, but I mean, I don't see any reason why you can't.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you can obviously change the language that you want the platform to display content in, can't you? So I'm
Yeah.
not entirely sure on that one, but yeah, give it a go. Why not? And see.
Yeah. Exactly. So much is about experimentation, isn't it? And Rebecca, I've popped the event link for the International Women's Day event there for anybody who is interested. This brings us very nicely to the end, but I just wanted to say, obviously Henry has mentioned this a few times now, but please do book one-to-ones with us, whether it is Henry, whether it is any of the other amazing volunteers on our platform. So many of the questions you've shared today have been amazing, and we would love to support you even more by sitting down in a one-to-one capacity and giving you proper, personalized, bespoke support. No business is the same. Obviously, there's lots of cookie cutter information out there, which is a great starting point, but we find the best growth comes from when you have someone like Henry, who is an expert, sitting down with you and looking at your business and working out the best plan of action for you and your business. So please, please do book a one-to-one. We really want to support you. I will, as Henry said, we will send around an email. You'll have the replay, you'll have previous replays, you'll have Henry's booking link, you'll have the general booking link. My only ask is please remember Henry is just one person. So if you do send Henry a request, please bear with him. Give him a couple of weeks notice, and we can hopefully get you all connected with Henry. But we have so many experts on our platform, so please do make the most of them. Please do browse, and yeah, and do join us for more masterclasses. We've got another one with Tom from BT this afternoon. If you're looking at your ideal client, Tom is going to be talking about that. And as I say, lots and lots coming up, so do check us out. But I just want to say thank you so much for being here and having your amazing questions. And Henry, thank you for returning as a host. As always, you are
No problem.
wonderful to work with. So do you want to say anything before we close out today?
Yeah, just thank you again to you all for taking the time to join today. Hopefully, you've taken at least one thing away from it. And like I said, I delivered a similar session a few weeks ago for Instagram, so we'll send the link around to that, the slides and the recording. But yeah, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, book a one-to-one session, free digital boost. I'm always up for sort of meeting and speaking to new people. I'm based in Aldgate, where our BT head office is. So if you work around the area or if you're ever in the area, feel free to drop me a message. Always up for meeting people in person as well. My preference is either speaking to people on the phone or via video call or in person. I hate talking to people by email and typed messages. So yeah, FYI.
Definitely. Well, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Henry. It's been a pleasure as always. But we will let you all get on with your day, and I will hopefully see some of you this afternoon for Tom's masterclass. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.